Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I see that there are a number of people uh, who are entering the room now. Some names that I know. Hi, Miss Gwen. Nice to see you. Nice to see you're here. I guess I can't see you, but nice to see you're here. We've got 15 attendees already, and it looks like more people are still logging in. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes. If anybody has any questions or wants to make any comments, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to find a Q&A button for questions and comments that you'd like to share. You can put into the chat box. And just give us 2 or 3 more minutes and then we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. There's a place to put comments. If you want to make comments to everyone, a chat box. If you're on a laptop or a computer, should be at the bottom of your screen. For those people who are, hey, Steve, I see your question. For those people that are attending the webinar and are not presenting the webinar, you're not going to be able to show your video or be able to speak. That's why we want to direct you to the chat box and to the Q&A box. If there is a point in time during the video where someone does need to share from the audience, or if one of the speakers wants to invite somebody to share, just let me know and I can switch their status so that they can speak and share video. That said, referring to that, it's to elevate someone to a panelist status from a attendee status. So if one of the speakers wants somebody to be elevated to a panelist status so that they can talk, just let me know. And we may even find that there are some people who have some questions, and we may do that as well. Hi, Miss Gwen. Good morning. I see that some people are using the chat box. Just let's give it 1 more minute because I see that there's still people entering the room, and then we're going to get started. Thank you all. Miss Polly, I see that you raised your hand. Was there something you needed? Or is that just an errant click of the mouse? Okay, I'm going to assume that that was just an errant click of the mouse. Well, good morning, everyone. It's 9:01, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is John Musaka. I'm a social worker with Capital Area Human Services, and I'm going to be the MC for our webinar. The title of our webinar today is Hope and Healing in Response to the Opioid Crisis, and we're scheduled to be here from now until 11 o'clock. For those of you just getting on, I want to direct you to some of the controls on your screen. There is a button that's labeled as Q&A. That's where you would enter any questions. Those people that are attendees to our webinar today, you're going to find that you can't talk and you can't share your own video. Only people that are have a status of panelists will be able to do that. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. And if you want to make any comments, please put them in the chat box. I'm going to be monitoring that, and periodically I'll try to refer back to comments and questions. We have looks like 37 people in attendance. So thank all of you for coming in. And Miss Polly, I think I did something. Um, yeah, I think I had done something to you. I was trying to give you a chance to talk, and I just put you back into an attendee. So if you have any questions or comments, please use the buttons below. I want to also direct you on your screen. You should see a button. And if you're on a tablet or a smartphone, it may look like a small tic-tac-toe board, 3 dots across and 3 dots down. If you hover over that button, it should give you options to change your view. If you want to see all of the panelists at one time, you would click Global View, Gallery View, I'm sorry. And if you want your screen to just switch to the person who's talking and only the person who's talking, then you would switch that to Speaker View. But that's your choice, and you manage that as you see fit. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first speakers today are going to do our welcome and opening remarks. And I'm going to just introduce the both of you now. Our first speaker is going to be Jan Laughinghouse. Jan is the Executive Director for Capital Area Human Services. And following Jan is going to be Tanja Miles. Tanja is a certified peer support specialist and a staple in our community. So we're real glad to have both of you this morning. Jan, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, John. I first want to say good morning to everyone and happy Tuesday. And I want to thank you for attending our forum, Hope and Healing in Response to the Opioid Crisis. As John said, I am Jan Laughinghouse, the Executive Director of Capital Area Human Services. Capital Area provides mental health, addiction recovery, developmental disabilities, and prevention services in the 7-parish region. So we serve East and West Feliciana, East and West Baton Rouge, and Iberville, Ascension, and Point Coupee. And this forum is actually part of the community-wide response to the opioid plan that we launched a few years ago. And this forum is actually being supported by funding from the Louisiana State Opioid Response Grant that funds prevention and treatment activities across the state of Louisiana. So thank you for joining us for Hope and Healing. I have worked in addiction since 1998, and one thing I have said is as long as there is life, there is hope. So we are hoping that the panelists that are filled with subject matter experts will be of great use to you as you go out into the community and deal with parishioners and congregants. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Tanja Miles. I'm a certified peer support specialist. I'm also a pastor. I am a veteran, and I am a person who's been in recovery for over about 36 years. I'm super excited about this. I think that this is such an amazing opportunity, such a blessing, because I remember back in the day, I'm not going to tell you how old I was, but I remember when I first decided that I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. In the first place I went to was the church, and the church didn't really know what to do with me. And, to their credit, I understand. And so back then I knew, wow, what a big disconnect. My mama was involved with, AA, and I saw how AA had such a great fellowship, and they had meetings and they had things of that nature. And I'm like, you know what, one day I think I'm going to do that. And so I was told by someone at the time who was at OBH, that'll never happen. Well, some years fast forward, and it actually happened, that a lot of people saw that faith-based organizations had a place and space to help people with addiction and destructive behavior. Maybe not the treatment part. If they became licensed, they could. But what about those wraparound services and things of that nature? So I'm just excited to see how this has...
Hey, Tanja, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your camera is backwards, I think.
You see me now?
There you are. There you are. Thanks. I'm so
Okay, no,
sorry to
you're
interrupt
good.
you.
No, you're good because what I was saying was more important than what you see. So, but anyway, I think that this is such a game changer. Thanks to Dr. Laughinghouse and Vivian for making this possible because I think moving forward, it's going to help us save a lot of lives when it comes to serving people with OUD. So I'm excited to be a part of this. Again, like I said, this was something that most people back in the day would have never thought to happen. The two shall become one. You're talking about addiction and also faith. And so now these two wonderful entities come together to save people with opioid addiction. And so I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thanks, Tanya, and thanks, Jan. We have there is a slideshow for this, and but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I did want first to one of our slides, and it was this one. In 2019, Louisiana had 127 deaths due to opioid use. 7 years prior to that, 28. It looks like about a five-fold increase in about 7 years. That's a substantial increase. And we've got someone who's kind of an expert in our community on this, Dr. Bo Clark. And Dr. Clark is our East Baton Rouge Parish coroner as well. And I want to turn the mic over to you, Dr. Clark.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about really a very tragic yet very important topic as it pertains to our community. And certainly this is something that's not only affecting East Baton Rouge Parish, but the state of Louisiana and the country as a whole. And I'm happy to be speaking about it because I think one of the most important things that we've really lost over the last year is bringing awareness to this epidemic. We've been inundated with lots of discussions about the COVID pandemic, while the opioid epidemic is still raging and actually in full swing, has really taken a lot of lives, and we'll get to that later in the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I have a small presentation to begin here. All right, hopefully you can see this. Let me switch screens. All right, so this morning, we're going to talk about Louisiana's heroin and the overuse of opioids. I've given this talk for several years now. This morning will be an abbreviated version of it. And what's important to understand is that we're going to start the conversation with discussing heroin. And the reason I start here is because in 2012, we had 5 people in the parish overdose from heroin. The following year, in 2013, that number grew to 35, a 7-fold increase. I tell you that because before 2012, we rarely saw heroin in our community. And so as a scientist, as a physician, and as your coroner, I began to think, why all of a sudden do we have this influx of heroin in our community? So that's why the beginning of this presentation is about heroin. So heroin is an opioid painkiller. You can see the fancy scientific name there. It's used as a recreational drug and a recreational drug only because it has euphoric effects. It makes you feel good. That's what people often refer to as getting high. Unfortunately, the side effects include CNS and respiratory depression and death. So your body slows down, your brain stops working, your lungs stop working, and unfortunately, when you can't breathe, you end up dying. I put these 2 pictures up there because on the bottom left hand of your screen, you can see the 3 forms of heroin. One is referred to as black tar heroin because it has a tarry kind of texture. The other powder is very white in color. Most commonly, if you're looking at pure heroin, you're seeing the sandy brownish color. The picture on the right lower portion of your screen depicts a needle and a spoon because a lot of times we often think about this is what heroin is. It's someone injecting it into their body. But I'm here to tell you that these substances, these opioids, can be put into your body in a lot of different ways. You can swallow them orally, you can smoke them, you can sniff them, and you can inject them. So we have to get out of the mindset that it's just a needle and a spoon. It actually is many more things when it comes to how we ingest this material. As far as heroin goes, when I look at someone's postmortem toxicology, meaning I draw blood and urine from them after they've died, I never ever find heroin in their system. And that's because heroin rapidly metabolizes into a drug called 6-monoacetylmorphine, or 6-MAM for short. And if we find 6 ma'am, though, it tells us that you had heroin in your system. So it is a clue that we use to definitively determine if the toxicology is positive for heroin. So let's look at some of the numbers. Like I said, in 2012, you can see here, these are the heroin numbers. There were 5 deaths. That number grew through 35 the following year. And then over the course of the next several years, including 2019, you can see how it entered kind of the 30 to 40 range. On top of that, I'm going to put other drugs, but understand this, included in other drugs, and we'll put the totals at the top, included in other drugs are opioids. They're just not including heroin. The majority of people in the community actually abuse all manners of drugs, and they die as a result of what we call mixed drug toxicity, meaning it's the synergistic effect of those multiple drugs that cause their death. But you can routinely categorize people into 2 different categories. They're either abusers of stimulants like methamphetamine or cocaine, or abusers of opiates like heroin, fentanyl, or prescription opioids. And so every year we see maybe 1 or 2 deaths that are a result of the stimulant abuse, but for the most part, people die as a result of abusing depressants and abusing lots of depressants, meaning they mix things like heroin, fentanyl, prescribed opioids, as well as alcohol, which is also a depressant, maybe muscle relaxers. And together, it's the conglomerate of those drugs and their synergistic effect that causes their death. So as a scientist and a physician, like I said, I had to ask myself the question, why? Why in 2013 did we have a 7-fold increase in heroin deaths in our community? And so I went back and did a little research, and I discovered that in the early part of 2000, the Louisiana legislature was going through some prison reform measures, and they felt like they had too many nonviolent drug offenders in jail. What they were specifically talking about was the distribution of marijuana. The mistake, however, they made is they used the term Schedule 1 instead of specifically talking about marijuana. And when we talk about Schedule 1 narcotics, these are narcotics that are labeled and defined as having no medicinal use whatsoever. And so included in Schedule 1 not only are marijuana, but is heroin, as well as drugs like LSD. And so in trying to do some of this criminal justice reform, it used to be that you would get life in prison for the distribution of these Schedule 1 drugs. And so in order to reduce those prisoning sentences, those mandating prisoning sentences, they decided to reduce the mandatory sentence from the top, which was life in prison, down to the bottom, which is about 5 years. And essentially what that meant is 18 months with good behavior, you would get out. And ultimately, because they used the term Schedule 1, what ultimately happened is we opened Louisiana in the drug market in Louisiana to heroin dealers. We basically invited them in because if they got caught selling heroin, they wouldn't go to jail for life. They would only go to jail for 5 years. And in doing so, Louisiana became a fairly safe place to sell heroin. The next thing that happened was in 2010, the Louisiana Board of Pharmacy created and implemented something called the Prescription Monitoring Program, which was a narcotic database that helped prescribers log into and see what the prescription habits were of the patient they were taking care of. This was a phenomena that we were trying to prevent, something called doctor shopping, which is also known as narcotics diversion. Basically, an entity when a patient would go to several physicians in a row and collect these prescriptions to either abuse or sell on the street. When we implemented the prescription monitoring program, and we weren't the only state, almost every state has one of these. When we implemented that, all of a sudden, the plethora of opioid prescription pills that were floating around on the street for sale and diversion began to get less and less. And then because that supply became less and less because of the prescription monitoring program, they became more expensive. And when the person who was abusing opioids could no longer afford a prescription opioid pill, they would turn to the more illicit substances like heroin and now fentanyl, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So again, the prescription monitoring program has kind of was an intention to do something very good, but it had an unintended consequence, which was forcing people from the prescription drug into the illicit world. More of why this opioid epidemic has come into our lives was the invention of what's called the fifth vital sign, or the pain scale. So right now we have four objectively identified vital signs, and that is your blood pressure, your temperature, your pulse, and your respiratory rate. These are all objectively, scientifically calculated. Well, there was a pharmaceutical company named Purdue Pharma who said we are undertreating pain. Physicians were undertreating pain, and so that we needed to create a tool to help us treat pain better. And they did that by inventing the subjective pain scale. And I say subjective because everybody's pain scale is different. And so you ask one person, what's their pain? They might say a 3. You ask another person, it might be a 7. But the federal government bought this hook, line, and sinker. And the next thing you know, we were asking all our patients about pain, and we were required to respond to that. Now, the unethical part of this story is the fact that Purdue Pharma had invented a drug called OxyContin, and they said this isn't a painkiller, it's not addictive. And so when that patient tells you they have a 7 or a 9 out of 10, you can give them this OxyContin. Lo and behold, what we did find out is OxyContin is incredibly addictive and is one of the main culprits of getting people addicted to opioids to begin with, as a prescription from the doctor, specifically OxyContin. So you can see how that has spun out of control. And then the last portion to the why is something called the patient satisfaction survey. And so recently, if you've gone into any kind of healthcare arena, you might have gotten a survey when you left that said, how was the service, and ask you a lot of questions. There used to be questions on that survey that would ask people, did they ask you about your pain? And you might say yes or no. And did they treat your pain appropriately? And so I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a pretty benign question, but you have to understand, if you're a person who's addicted to opioids and the prescriber did not give you opioids, then you're likely to say, no, they didn't treat my pain. So the question really is it's not really asking the right question to someone who might have an addiction issue, because it's really asking them, did the person get you high? Because that's what the person with addiction might have been looking for. So since then, they've removed a lot of these questions, which are good things. So we're seeing some solution when it comes to patient satisfaction surveys. So let's talk about solutions. So, I've told you all the bad news about how we're in this opioid epidemic. We didn't get here overnight. It's taken a long time. We're not going to get out of it overnight, but we can get out of it. The problem is it's complicated. What we have to understand is that there are components to that. We have to treat the patient versus the patient satisfaction scores, or the pain scale. We have to educate people, which is exactly what we're doing now, teaching people about the opioid epidemic. Unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of the talking and speaking engagements that I've had went away because we weren't meeting in that fashion anymore. So we spent a whole year where we weren't engaged about the opioid epidemic. So I'm very happy today that we're getting re-engaged as well. There's also a press conference later today with myself and the mayor and the district attorney. So the other thing to remember when we talk about solutions is you have to treat the patient, and if they're opioid dependent, they are not only physically addicted to these medications, meaning their body needs and craves it, but they have a mental issue, a psychological, psychiatric issue that needs to be addressed as well. And so we have to treat both sides of the equation in the opioid dependent person, physically helping them and helping them with what's going on cognitively with their behavior. So the next thing I want to talk about is fentanyl, because fentanyl becomes very important. And I'll tell you a quick story about fentanyl. So I went to a death scene several years ago, and I had the opportunity to speak with the decedents. He was about 65 years old, his sister. And she said to me, we knew one day cocaine was going to kill him. And so as an investigator, I use that as a clue, meaning that, certainly this looks like a drug overdose. We're going to draw toxicology. And what should we find? We should probably find that he has cocaine, a massive cocaine overdose. So sure enough, we draw the toxicology. Several weeks later, we get it back from the laboratory. And lo and behold, there's no cocaine in his system. As a matter of fact, there's only one drug. And you'll remember me saying just a few minutes ago that most people die of multiple drugs. Well, in his system was one drug, and it was fentanyl. So I got to thinking, I said, what caused a person who had abused cocaine their entire life on a Wednesday to all of a sudden move from abusing a stimulant, which they were addicted to abusing fentanyl? That just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And so, I couldn't wrap my mind around why he would do that. And then I started thinking, well, maybe he didn't know what he was getting, meaning that when you go to a drug dealer and you say you want whatever you want, they just give you a baggie of something. And maybe the drug dealer didn't even know what he was selling to this person. So I went back and I said, well, let's look and see when fentanyl started to appear in some of the toxicology we were seeing in the parish. So that's what we're going to see here. You'll remember the heroin numbers I showed you earlier. You'll remember the other overdose numbers, and you'll see that there was no fentanyl back in 2012 and 2013. If we go further into the other years, you'll see the heroin numbers again. You'll see the fentanyl numbers, and then you'll see right there's a heroin and fentanyl number in 2019, and then you'll see the other drugs. And so what's important is back in 2016 is when we really started seeing fentanyl make its appearance. But most devastating was in the fact in 2019, they took a drug like heroin, which is incredibly dangerous, incredibly potent, incredibly powerful when it comes to opioids. And they were mixing it with fentanyl, which is even worse than heroin. And so now that we're having this combined drug effect of two of the most powerful opioids that we know about causing death. And you can see how that in the red area became very concerning. So go back, I'm sorry. So where are we at with 2020? Almost all the toxicology is in as of yet. And the sad news is in 2019, we had 127 deaths as a result of overdose. That number nearly doubled in 2020. 245 is what we have, with a few cases still pending. The predominant drug that we have now seen has converted to fentanyl. It is the most common. We're still seeing a little bit of heroin. We're still seeing a little bit of heroin plus fentanyl combined. But for the most part, people are abusing and dying as a result of fentanyl, which is an incredibly powerful opioid. And so this is concerning. This is concerning that we've doubled the number. And I can tell you already now, in the very beginning, January of 2021, things are not looking good. We are looking at making another record year. I'm not sure what it'll be yet because it's so soon, but I'm worried that it is going to be another record year, another year where we lose a lot of lives, a lot of young lives that have a lot of potential. And certainly, I'm glad that we're here talking and discussing this today, because the more we can give information and awareness to the community, the more often we'll have an opportunity to impact someone's life, and hopefully get them the help they need and get them those solutions that we talked about. So I don't know if we have if we're doing questions. I'm not sure, but certainly at the appropriate time, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I'll turn it back over to John.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Is there a way to unshare my screen, I guess? Can you do that?
Let's see. I think I could do that for you.
Oh, I got it. Stop
There
share.
we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Clark. There are, I don't see any questions right now, but I just want to take a moment. If anyone has any questions for Dr. Clark, please use the Q&A button and enter your questions, and we'll try to address your questions. You know, one of the questions that I had while you were talking, Dr. Clark, had to do with the when we think about rates of deaths, the opiates and other drugs versus alcohol. I'm not sure if you mentioned this during your talk, but do you have any idea of what the scales we're talking about?
So, alcohol is a depressant, but we don't, oftentimes we see the chronic effects of alcohol through liver failure, liver toxicity. So, it is rare to have an instance, and the one that probably is most notable to everyone on the call would be the Max Gruber case, where someone drinks a level of alcohol, and it's the alcohol that's directly related to their cause of death. And so we don't see that all that often, but typically people that abuse alcohol, it's over a long period of time, and they end up having other chronic illnesses as a result of that. What worries me, though, with alcohol being a depressant is the fact that in these multi-drug toxicities that I was speaking about this morning, is you have individuals that will abuse prescription opioids, and then they'll add fentanyl to it and heroin to it, and then they'll drink alcohol on top of that. They'll throw a muscle relaxer in, and you can imagine what that does to your body system when you start to depress it and depress it more and depress it more. Eventually, your body can't withstand that level of toxin that's put into it, and you stop breathing and you die. And that's the unfortunate problem with all of this. And, of course, these folks need our help because they have an addiction issue, an addiction disorder that needs to be treated. And I know you have some panelists today, some people that are experts in the field of treating them. And so I hope in the future, as we move forward, especially as money's become available through these lawsuits with the big pharmaceutical companies, that we put a lot of that money, if not most of it, the majority of it, into treatment, because that's the way to the finish line of the opioid epidemic, is getting people the treatment they need, and it's expensive, right? So I mean, and I think the pharmaceutical companies are the culprit here, and are culpable in the sense that they need to pay for it, because they've led us down this road, and so I think that's where we should head. It's still important, obviously, to discuss it and have conversations about it and bring awareness. I can tell you, before COVID, I was speaking regularly about opioid epidemic. I think the most I did in one day was 3 times the same speech. But the point is that that has fallen off. And I think that is a contributor to the COVID pandemic, that has created an issue, because we started talking about COVID, and we stopped talking about opioids. And that's a problem, because the opioid epidemic didn't go away. As a matter of fact, it got worse.
Thanks, Dr. Clark. While you were talking, I'm also trying to help one of our speakers, so I apologize for the delay.
I will mention this, John, is that I have to go to this press conference. I'll stay on as long as I can. If someone has a specific question, you can always reach out to me here at the coroner's office. Shoot me an email. Happy to talk or whatnot.
We do have a couple of questions, and do you have about 10 minutes?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay. The first question is a simple one. Someone is asking about your slides. They're saying, great slides. Will we have access to them? I know that we're recording this session, and we're going to try to have this posted to the Capital Area website. That's one way. If somebody wants to access you or your slides, Dr. Clark, what's that number to the coroner's office?
So our number here is
address.
Yeah, it's 225-389-3047. If you go to my website, which is edrcorner.com, that's really easy to remember. Down at the very bottom, there's a news tab. And actually, several years ago, when I gave the extended version of the presentation that I gave to you this morning, it was filmed. It was in Lafayette, and it was filmed. And so if you go down to the news tab, you'll see, of course, the office's annual reports. You'll see tons of statistics that we keep on COVID deaths, homicides, overdoses. And at the very bottom, there's a few presentations. One of them is the opioid presentation. You can watch what I told you today in its extended version. It's about 20-25 minutes long. So, and so there's several ways you can get access to this data. But I would always start with the website, because we update, like the 2021 numbers are already there as they come in. So if you want to know what the latest statistics look like, that's where you'll find them.
Yeah. I've got a couple of people asking about the demographics of the recent opioid related deaths. Do you know anything, any breakdown of gender, race, age?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I can't give you numbers right off the top of my head, but I can tell you this is what's very interesting. When it comes to COVID, we know when we're looking at COVID deaths, and I'm giving you this as a comparison, typically the people that are affected are the elderly and people with comorbidities. So we can isolate a portion of the population to that pandemic. When it comes to the opioid epidemic, however, the sad news is that it affects all ages, right? I think the youngest case we've had is 18, the highest is 67. It affects all races, it affects all genders, it affects anybody in the socioeconomic strata. So it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter what part of town you live from, doesn't matter what church you go to, it affects everybody. That's why the opioid epidemic is so devastating, is because it can affect anybody and everybody in our community. And so that's why we see such high numbers, is because of that breadth of the demographic that it affects, which is essentially everybody.
Miss Gwen is asking about that number of overdose deaths for 2020. Do you remember that off the top of your head?
245, and I think I still have 1 or 2 that are pending. What you have to understand is that there's about 3 to 4 week lag in getting the results back from the laboratory. We use a nationally forensic laboratory. And because the opioid epidemic has exploded across the nation, this laboratory is not only doing our toxicology, but everybody else's. And so where it used to take about 14 to 21 days is now extending to almost 4 weeks. So we're, the very tail end of December, we're starting to get that data back now. I'll be putting out I always put out the coroner's office annual report, which has this information and a lot of other information about what we do. And it usually comes out around February or March. And so the final count will be at that point.
Great. Another question here has to do with your knowledge of something called Gray Death, which sounds like the street name for some opioid combination.
Yeah.
They're seeing this in Jefferson Parish. Are we seeing this in Baton Rouge as well?
Yeah, so there's a lot. So when we talk about fentanyl, and remember, fentanyl is a synthetic drug, okay? And so what makes fentanyl so deadly, not only is the drug itself, but it's how it's manufactured. Heroin requires Mother Nature, right? You have to have soil, you have to have sunlight, you have to have water, right? When you get into the synthetic drug production business, you can do that at any time of the day, at night, in a warehouse. I mean, you just need the chemicals. And so that's what is kind of changed the game when you talk from a production and distribution standpoint. We're talking about drug dealers, the bad guys here. And so when they're able to produce that in that fashion, they can produce a lot more of it. And it's even more potent. So that makes it very challenging for people that suffer from addiction. Now, when you hear things like pink, gray death, these are street names for different variants of those types of drugs, or different ways that they're used, right? You might have heard the term of a speedball before, right? Speedball would be mixing two drugs together. So with pink, it was a variant of heroin that was super, super potent. We have seen it in this community, not readily. But they called it pink because instead of being white, like the picture I showed you earlier, it had like a pink hue to it. And that was its street name. Gray death, other things like that. We do see that, but by no means does that outnumber just the straight up fentanyl or heroin overdoses that we see. They're common ones.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions for you, Dr. Clark. So I think we're going to say thank you. And if you can stay a little longer, that's great. And if not, we understand.
All right. I give a shout out to my friend Louis Cataldi. I see you just joined us.
Hey man, how's it going?
All right,
Appreciate you, man.
Hey, Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark, one last question just popped in. Kratom. Are we seeing any deaths from Kratom?
Maybe one or two, but Kratom typically involves a stimulant, much like cocaine and heroin. And typically the death is not directly a result of the drug itself, but the actions caused by the drug, right? So oftentimes you'll see individuals that take stimulant drugs and then decide they can fly. And it's really the fall that kills them, even though the drug was what instituted them to jump. But yes, we still have stimulant-induced arrhythmias from these drugs that we see, but much, much rarer than anything associated with the opioid epidemic.
Thanks so much, Dr. Clark.
Right,
it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into our next segment, and we're going to have a panel discussion. I'm going to share a slide so you can see who our panelists are going to be. Y'all remember, sorry, that was not the right one. Y'all remember Tanja Miles. Tanja was part of the team that gave us our opening this morning. And one of the panelists, would y'all let me know if you are seeing the panel discussion screen right now with our 5 panelists?
I am.
Great. Okay. So in addition to Tanja, we're going to have Dr. Louis Cataldi. Dr. Cataldi is an addictionologist. And if you've been around for a while, you remember Dr. Cataldi is one of those early doctors who was treating addiction way back at, what I remember was way back at Baton Rouge General at CDU all those years ago. And he's still fighting the good fight even today. We're also going to have Daria Venning-Asbury. Daria is a family member who's been impacted in their family by the opioid epidemic. Dr. Leslie Faulkner is a community outreach coordinator who works for the DEA out of New Orleans. And Ms. Trudy Bell Wickham. Ms. Trudy is an opioid prevention outreach coordinator who works for the OPH office in Region 2 here in Louisiana. So Tanja, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, thank you so much, John. Earlier, Dr. Laffenhouse talked about the people we have on the panel, some of the best and the brightest, and I'm so grateful that they're on here because there's truly have the pulse of what's going on in our community. Our first question is Dr. Cataldi. Good morning, Dr. Cataldi.
Oh, great. Right off the bat. Okay. Hey,
You
Tanya.
already know. So here's my first question to you. We just heard Dr. Clark talk about opioid crisis in our community. What do you think faith communities need to know about opioid addiction and treatment, especially in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, and obviously, the awareness of what it does and that the availability is out there and that the contamination is out there. Also, I think it's a great platform to get Narcan out to folks. Just as an aside, let me mention that the medical literature is showing that Kratom overdoses can be reversed by Narcan. So if you do have a situation which somebody is overdosed on Kratom, obviously administer the Narcan and get them immediately to a facility. But I believe this disease is biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. And I think the crux of recovery is spiritual. And I think until that spiritual component is reached, because I don't want to take up a long time, but when addicts come in, they have zero self-worth for themselves, but they have zero trust for others as a rule. If they feel others can't help them or others are going to judge them, so they feel like they're outcasts. So the first thing I think is just by allowing them to understand that they have a disease process, and although their behavior is unacceptable and their behavior is against our value systems and their value systems of being in a religious experience, that doesn't mean they're bad people. And I think if we can develop some trust, that the addict can develop some trust with the minister and with the congregation, their self-worth will increase. And as their self-worth increases and they start to feel better about themselves, interestingly enough, that's when they start rejecting us again for a lot of reasons. And I think as long as we keep that door open, it can be beneficial. So number one, know what's going on. Number two, and I know everybody does that. Everybody who is in the true pastors do this. Don't judge the behavior. Accept the individual as having worth and help them realize that themselves. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir, it does. Medication-assisted treatment, MAT, has been recently publicized as one of the ways to help people with opioid addiction overcome their lives. Can you summarize the major components of MAT, i.e. medication, counseling, support from family and friends?
The key word is what you just said. It's medication-assisted treatment, not medication-only treatment.
That's
and
right.
That's one of the pitfalls we're seeing. By relieving the consequence of opiate addiction by giving somebody, say, Suboxone, all we've done is relieve the consequence. Nothing else has changed. And the literature now is showing, and the trends are showing, that although more Suboxone prescriptions are being written right now, the number has plateaued. So what does that mean? Well, if more people are getting off of it, that means on the other end, more people are getting off of it. But they're not getting off of it in a good way. So we're seeing that the Suboxone alone is not an answer. It buys you some time to address that psychological, social, and spiritual bankruptcy that you have going. There's another, Vivitrol is also an injectable opioid blocker. That's a medication-assisted treatment, but we can't get people to take it. It just hasn't been that much of a buy for lots of different reasons. So the bottom line is exactly what you said. It's medication assisted. I can help you with that. And it only helps for the opiates. You could be drinking and taking meth and still take Suboxone. So, again, it's a life-saving measure. I'm all for it, but it needs to be understood as a tool.
Yes, sir. So how do people with opioid use disorder decide whether MAT is right for them or not?
Well, I think that needs to be a decision that's made within a system. That system can either be a collaborative agreement between the prescriber and the patient, or the prescriber, patient, and extended family, or in some cases, prescriber, patient, and judicial system. So I think the person who qualifies most is the person who has had repeated, I won't say failures, repeated mishaps for traditional treatment. If I'm in a chronic relapse situation, Lord, the way to get out of that, of course, might be to give me Suboxone, let's say. That gets me out of the immediate danger. But again, it's only a gateway into recovery. It is not recovery. And the individual is responsible for accepting that gateway. And the prescriber is going to have to decide at some point in time, am I enabling this patient by continuing to give them this medication and they're doing other things they shouldn't be doing, smoking marijuana or whatever? Or do I need to draw the line here and say you've got to go to a more intense level of care?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Cataldi. We really appreciate you. And I know that someone mentioned that you have been around a long time. Has nothing to do with your age, only your experience. So I just want to say I'm so glad that you're still around doing the great work that you did back in the day and still doing it well today.
Oh, Lord. I have been around a while. You're right about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Well, I want to move on to our next panelist, Miss Vining Ashbury. Did I say your last name right, ma'am?
It's Asbury.
Great, Miss Asbury. Thank you so much for being on the call this morning. This is, I think, a real important question, and I'm so glad that you're here to take part in these. Many families in our communities have been impacted by opioid epidemic. Can you briefly share insights on what you have gained basis on your personal experience? And thank you for sharing it.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm gonna try to get through this. Well, I know I'm not. So just bear with me. It's been a journey. You never see yourself going through it, yourself. You see other families, you hear stories, but when it hits you directly, it hits you. Some days I'm still in disbelief that it has hit my family and that we are going through it. It's stressful, it's emotional, and it's mental for both parties. For her, because she's, struggling with the drug, and then for me, because I guess you just live in disbelief. And for myself, I guess it's still hard to accept that this is where we are. This is what we're dealing with. We have gone through rehab maybe 5 or 6 times. I've lost count. We've tried numerous tactics. Our latest tactics, I think, was last year. And she tried, I can't remember, it's right off of Segan Lane, methadone clinic. We tried that, that was like our last resort, so to speak, to see if that would help her. It lasted for a little while. And once she got her own wheels, she stopped going. As long as I was taking her, she was going. And it's just been, it's been a journey. And I guess that's all. It's been a journey of 7 years. And excuse me, I read one place that the average person trying to get off drugs, it takes 20 years. And I had a dream one night, we're in our 7th year. And I had a dream one night that I had 13 more years to go. And when you look at that, it's hard, because right now I don't see an ending. I try, to keep hopeful. We have our high days, we have our low days. And when we have our low days, it's low. Like I said, when I got asked, when I was asked to do this presentation, I was like, I'm good. I'm over a hurdle. I can discuss it and talk about it, because, some days, I guess it's just a figment of my imagination that she's off, but in reality, I know she's not. And I guess hope want me to be off, hope for myself is wanting her to be off when I know she's not. And there are days when I think I know she wants to be off, and then there are other days when I think I know she's not ready, despite how she acts. And during the course of the time, disrespectful. We are going through a disrespectful stage. I mean, when I tell you it is very disrespectful, it's heartbreaking. You see this person that you have raised, and in her heart that she was a kind child, and to see them do a whole, just a complete turnaround, it's just shocking.
Yeah.
And you try, and I guess for me, that's what I keep looking at, that it's not her, it's not the child that I raised, it's the drugs. But then I look and I say, well, with the behavior, is drugs an excuse? Do do they know what they're doing? Do they know what they are doing? The words, the hatefulness, the heartbreaking, I can't even stress the behavior. It's just so disrespectful.
Yes.
It causes tension within your family. I'm an only child. She's an only child. And for my mom going through it with her, she's looking at, this is my granddaughter. It hurts me. This used to be my road dog. We used to go everywhere. We used to do this. And to see her so disrespectful to my mom.
Yes.
My mom, high blood pressure now, didn't have high blood pressure, stressed. Right. It's taking a toll on her. Then it puts me in a situation because that's still my child, but that's my mom, and it causes so much friction because, like I said, at the end of the day, she's my child. Yes. And, you have to set your boundaries. And I haven't been good with that until recently. I thought like I said, every day is a new day. Every day is a new challenge. Every day is drama.
Well, let me just say this. I really appreciate, you being, forthright in something that you said about reading somewhere it takes 20 years. And I guess that's where the faith part of this come in. Right. We know what, data says and stats and stuff like that. But, we choose to believe the report of God and know it. And hopefully it won't take 20 years.
Right.
And so I just want to thank you for sharing that. That was really good. The other question I'd like to ask you, kind of going into the faith-based thing, how can the faith community best support individuals and their families struggling with opioid addiction?
I believe, as you stated, when you were going through your situation back then, the churches, I did reach out to my church originally, and they could not help me. They were clueless. They didn't have the resources. So I believe just getting the material, the resources out to the churches when someone, goes to the church directly instead of trying to seek help elsewhere. The first place they do go is to your church. So I believe that's just trying to get all of the resources to all of the churches would be the number one thing to first consider. Because I believe if they have the resources to talk to you, to be able to tell you, okay, well, this is where you can go, or we can try this, then that can help the person, that's going through it, to help the individual.
That makes sense. My last question for you, what do you think needs to be done more efficiently to prevent opioid misuse in the greater Baton Rouge community?
I think it's just to continue to shed light on the situation. Don't hide it. Bring it, forth on the news. Have discussions like this. Like before COVID, we were meeting face to face. And I just continue to get the word out, continue to shed light on it, provide resources. So, no one would be ignorant about it.
Yes, that's good. And look, again, we want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And your daughter and you will definitely be in our prayers. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I know you're going to encourage a lot of family members who are listening out there this morning. Dr. Faulkner, this question is for you. The Drug Enforcement Administration works to address the opioid epidemic through law enforcement and outreach services. What are some of the general activities related to law enforcement efforts to reduce the illegal opioid supply in our community? And that question is for you, Dr. Faulkner.
I needed to unmute myself. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, we are fortunate this morning to have with us, along with myself, I'm the Diversion Outreach Coordinator, and I don't handle law enforcement. So this question will go to the Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Mr. Michael Sater, and he will come and answer that question and any other questions related to the law enforcement part for you all this morning. Mr. Sater.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to participate in this panel. So while I can't speak specific to cases and investigations, I can speak in broad terms as to what we're doing as an agency. So DEA and other law enforcement entities have realized that we aren't able to arrest our way out of this situation. The opioid epidemic has been ongoing, and what DEA has done along the way, because investigative strategies change, distribution groups, they change their ways as to how they're distributing fentanyl and heroin. So throughout the past 4 or 5 years, we try to keep pace with what's going on as far as how heroin and fentanyl is being trafficked and distributed throughout the country. What we did, recognizing that we can't just arrest ourselves out of this situation, we focus on the cartel organizations. A majority of what we see is that the heroin and fentanyl is being trafficked through Mexico. So our focus is on drug cartels. We're focused on their support structures, the money launderers, the transportation groups that distribute heroin and fentanyl throughout the country. And we also, with the diversion aspect of our investigations, we focus on rogue doctors and rogue pharmacists who overprescribe. And that also is an important part of our investigative process. However, that's overall, maybe the rogue pharmacists and doctors are, I would say, less than 20 or 30% of our overall investigations. A majority of our investigations are based on illicit, what we call DTOs, drug trafficking organizations, that are primarily based in Mexico, but then they have drug cells throughout the country. So the primary goal for DEA nationwide is to disrupt and dismantle drug trafficking organizations, whether they be domestic or international, are to identify who they are and to disrupt and dismantle them. As a regional response for the state of Louisiana, we've created individual task forces, we call them response groups. And the purpose of these response groups are to identify drug trafficking organizations, drug cells within the state of Louisiana that have ties to other districts throughout the country. So what we've done is, with this regional response, we've partnered with our state and local agencies. We are making more of I think what we are doing in Louisiana is a little bit different than what the rest of the country is doing. We've made it a coordinated effort to specifically partner with the coroner's office and the district attorney's office. The reason that we've decided to do that is, we're always trying to do what we do and do it better, do it more efficiently. And we have a great working relationship here in the Baton Rouge area with the East Baton Rouge coroner's office, as well as the district attorney's office. And the purpose in those relationships, there's several reasons. One of the things we want to do is we want to identify the suspects. We want to basically try to kind of create a hierarchy in the Baton Rouge area as to who is really distributing heroin and fentanyl.
Right.
There's probably literally hundreds, if not thousands, of street level retail dealers. But as you climb and go up the hierarchy and you get to the mid-level dealers, you get to people who are dealing pounds and kilograms, that number shrinks. And if we're able to basically identify the sources of supply, our goal is to try to eliminate the overdoses by attacking the source of supply.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So some of the things we're doing, again, I can't speak specific to cases, but we're trying to build a specific to heroin, a suspect database. We're trying to identify hotspots. Unfortunately for Baton Rouge, almost the whole parish is a hotspot.
That's correct. Yeah, we were looking at that this morning. You're absolutely right.
But there's hotspots within hotspots, if that makes sense. So we put a lot of focus onto those areas. One of the big things, and both the DA's office and the coroner's office agreed with this. One of the ways we're trying to combat this is do telephone exploitation. And what we're finding is that a lot of the heroin overdose victims, within minutes of their overdose death, their last call, maybe their last 2 or 3 calls, were to a distributor, to what maybe a street level source of supply, but someone who had provided them the drugs.
Sure.
So we're starting to explode. We always have, but now we're doing it with the coroner's office and the DA's office. And one of the problems we've seen in the parish, we've seen this all over the country, is that there is no standardized way of processing an overdose scene. Some law enforcement agencies go in there and they just treat it as an overdose scene, and everybody has different protocols as to how they're going to collect evidence, the phones, the drugs, how they're going to interview family members. So what we're trying to do is coordinate, at least within East Baton Rouge, is we're trying to come up with a standard protocol when you arrive at a overdose scene to treat them all the same. So we DEA can acquire all of the evidence that we need for our investigations. The other 2 things we're trying to do is we're trying to exploit social media sites, and we're trying to exploit human intelligence. The other things that we've identified is that while it's great to get into the phones and identify and work the telephone numbers to identify who was using the phones to distribute the drugs, probably the best way to get information and to identify these sources of supplies are through human intelligence. I think one of the things that we don't do well enough is family members and friends of the deceased overdose victims, where, who better than the family members than to say, this is who my brother, my sister, my mom and dad, this is who they were talking to, or this is who came by the house, or this is the kind of car they were driving, or here's the license plate, or here's their phone number. And I don't think we exploit that information enough, and I think we could do a better job at that. And so that's the one thing we're trying to do as well as social media. I mean, that's been something we've been doing for a long time, but the issues we have with social media are just everything is encrypted these days. It's hard to get into it and to exploit it. We have to do search warrants and subpoenas to get into those websites. And unfortunately, everybody is all about privacy these days. And so we, as a law enforcement entity, we don't have, that people feel like we're coming in there and violating their privacy when all we're trying to do is exploit information to identify the dangers of drug trafficking. So those are a few of the things we're doing.
Well, let me just say this. Those are great things that you guys are doing. And it's so funny because a family member who had a loved one who died by death by overdose, she wasn't sure why the phone was not being released yet. And, and it kind of makes sense now. Probably that was one of the things that they were doing. And I love the fact that you said that, law enforcement cannot arrest their way out of this, that it's going to take, all of us working together. Hence, that's why we're on this Zoom call. I think that's a quote that needs to be said, several times. So I just want to, thank you for that information. And also thank you for that quote, which I'm going to use today. So I appreciate it. I still have a question for you, Dr. Faulkner. How can faith community support medications safety practices to improve success in efforts?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think I
see where you went. Okay, I can answer that. Okay, so one of the issues, one of the concerns I have is that, at one time we had DEA 360, and that was our big take back option to show the communities that we were out there working. We had a summit in 2019 in October, where we had all the schools that we could elicit from the New Orleans, from the West Bank area, that we launched this big summit to promote education regarding the opioids and things in the school. The faith-based community was part of that system. It has always been, actually, and you may not be aware of this, but in our New Orleans field division, we have a section where we have a conundrum, maybe 12 to 15 ministers who come into the office, come in, and we meet with them, and we speak to just what we're speaking to today. One of the concerns that we have, and we're working hard on this, because we have to get better in being in the community. What do we do? One of the issues is that they lack resources. We know that.
Yeah.
That's you guys, all the collaborations with all the different entities such as yourselves and different coalitions come in. And I'm trying to reach out to you all as the outreach coordinator to put myself in the situation to help you from my end. Of course, I can't be at every church, but I can come to quite a few of them and make my presence known, because one of the things I found out during this journey in the faith-based community, and even within my own church, that there are no resources. People, young, like Mrs. Asbury, who said that she went to the church and there was nothing they can do. One church did tell me this, and I did a little research because I have to be nosy because I want to know what I'm talking about. So I asked this pastor, and I gave him like a little fake scenario about someone being ill and coming in and having substance abuse issues. What would he do? And he said, prayer. Okay, I know that. God knows I do. So I knew that that would be an issue. He also said that he would gather together within his church to find out who's there. We don't know who's sitting in the pulpit number 3. It could be the head leader of the Social Workers of America. It could be anybody or me or anyone there. I'm being funny about this, but I'm so real. We don't know who's in our church. So he said he would reach out to the church members and see what they can do. And one of the other things he shared with me that was very interesting, he said that years ago, the church that he was a member of had a big base, a resource list within their church where they could reach out to Sister, I'm just calling Langan House. I don't know you, Jan. I'm just seeing your name there. Or either Sister Trudy or somebody, or Sister Collins, any of these people that were there, that sitting in their church, who works with these coalitions, who could get help for them. I think we need to start there, get us a resource list that everyone can utilize, where it's updated every 6 months or whatever, as we trend through and try. We on the DA side, what I can do is I can talk about this situation. I know about it. I've been there, done it. I have a certificate somewhere on my wall where something has, if it's not a loved one, it's something I know that I know. So I'm sharing this in the sense that in the faith-based community, we need to talk about it. We can pray, and just like Sater said, we can't arrest our way out of the situation. We certainly can pray our way out of things. So we know that prayer changes everything. That's the bottom line.
That's
but
good.
Also within that prayer, we got to pray for some resources that help us get that person where they need to be. But prayer will hold them there long enough to get them into a treatment program, to get them where they. I still believe all of this is interconnected.
Yes.
On my part, what we do from the DEA standpoint is we provide education. I have the statistics. I know who died, where they died, when they died. I know how many people are in this certain section of town. We know all of this. We're finding out who's doing this. And we're trying to do, like he said, try to eliminate some of this stuff. But in the meantime, we still need to heal. We need to help. We need to get some treatment work in. One of the things we're asking is April. I'm talking like, because I know we got time. April is drug take back, April and October. So we come out into the community, and it's not a lot of us, but you might see me stand on the corner in anywhere. You're going to see me in Baton Rouge on your television stations, because I'm asking people to bring those drugs in. Remember, we're still in this pandemic. Lots of people at home. Lots of people are still anxious and going through some stuff, and they're taking more stuff than they used to take. Now we got the children and grandchildren. That's me, y'all. got me running to there, getting that extra Excedrin and stuff out the cabinet because they driving me with a Zoom education. I can't educate nobody on Zoom. I don't even know how to get on Zoom.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I'm saying there's a lot of issues that have been added
Yes.
to the table that make a person, if they had one little problem that made them use something,
Sure.
now we got 10. So I'm just saying to you and everybody else, we got to get those drugs out the house.
That's
so
good.
Bring them April the 25th to the drug take back.
Okay.
We're going to be on your corner. And I'll tell you, we can only take it on that one day, but during the year, CVS, I'm just calling out Walgreens, different places have drug lock boxes in the pharmacy.
Absolutely.
Ask, hey, what that box for right there? Okay, that's for you to bring all your extra drugs and stuff. Get them out the house, because one of the main things we know, medicine cabinet abuse. The easiest is to get medications in the medicine cabinet or in my purse, but I'm just saying I put them there because they done found out they can go in the medicine cabinet. So I'm just saying children can find their Christmas presents. They can find their drugs. I'm just telling you. So if you thought you hid it up on top of the refrigerator, my 7-year-old showed me, guess what, Ma? I could get it on this chair and get your candy from up there. Oops. And that's why I ain't got no chocolate. So I'm just trying to tell you, they can get my chocolate, they can get my other medications as well. So we have to work hard at trying to work with it. But back to faith. We just need to talk about it in church. We need to have it's nothing to be embarrassed about. That's one of the things that come to the church. We praying secretively about what's going on in our homes. But everybody know my son on drugs or my daughter, everybody know. So I don't mind telling you, I need some help with it or her.
Good.
So I'm asking you to come together and we collectively come together, get some resources together. Let's put something together. You got this brilliant panel of all these different people who have different things that we can all do together. I'm here for you. And what's your other question? I'm sorry. I went on.
Oh, no, that's it. Matter of fact,
I'm passionate about this.
No,
this is real.
we love your passion, and your passion is contagious. And basically, you answered, both questions all at the same time. And I just want to say, thank you for your passion, and I look forward to seeing you, more in Baton Rouge. And shout out to Capital Area who.
I just want to say this when I say that. So DEA 360 has expired, but we have rolled it over into something called Operation Engage. So Engage opened some more doors, and y'all can look at this. You can Google it or whatever you want to do. I know Chanel Collins getting ready to get on her other computer and start looking it up right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll get it. And put it
Operation Engage is here in the Baton Rouge area. You're going to hear more about it as it rolls out. We need you and some of you on the committee, because you bring what I don't know to the table. I'll be reaching out through Ms. Miles and John and everyone else to let you guys know. I'm not the coordinator of that, but I'm working with her. And we're going to get you guys in on Operation Engage, which is going statewide. And let me just say, New Orleans Field Division covers Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Arkansas. So we're big. It's a lot of us. But we're going to work it out. But Operation Engage.
Operation Engage. We'll definitely be looking forward to that. And we appreciate your passion and the work that you do. And we will be talking to you soon. And, Capital Area has resource guides that they've probably been doing for the last 14 years. And it basically just what you said, it's all those wraparound services in this, wonderful little guide. And so, we're hoping, other, LGs across the state will do the same thing. So thank you so much, Dr. Faulkner.
Put them in their cars. I mean, it's not against the law. Put it in the car of the taxi driver, the Uber driver.
Oh yeah, we have a plan.
Creative. Put it out there. Oh, and don't forget to put it in the one that brings me my lunch in the afternoon. Put it in the lunch person that delivers DoorDash.
Yes, ma'am.
Put it in his car too, because he can dash one out to you, to community.
That's right. Thank you so much, Dr. Faulkner. We really appreciate it. My next question is to Mrs. Bell Wickham. Good morning, and thank you so much for being on the panel. The Louisiana Department of Health has received federal funding to assist in the implementation of the state opioid response plan. What are some of the LDH, OPH outreach initiatives and activities that you provide as part of this effort in the greater Baton Rouge region?
Thank you, Tanya. But I have to say amen to Dr. Faulkner. I think we had our sermon today.
Yeah, that was a wrap. All we need to do is
can we all say amen?
Yes.
Yes, well, I am very happy to be a part of this panel and this partnership. I am with the Department of Health, Office of Public Health, and we have worked more currently very closely with Capillary Human Services. We have fortunately have funding to help support people who have an opiate or to address this opiate crisis. So in our opiate response plan, we are focusing on data collection. And if you go to the Department of Health's website, you have a wonderful surveillance system that collects data. And you can put in, if you want to know just what's happening in East Baton Rouge Parish, you can find that out. If you want to find out what's happening in the state, you can find that out. It is a beautiful, easy to use surveillance system, and it tracks not only opiates, but other emergency room visits. So it gives you a lot of information here. So I do encourage you all to spend some time on the website. But we're also focused on interventions such as Narcan training. And I am totally encouraging churches to, when you have your health fairs, or even just when you, many of you all may have health committees or health focused committees, think about inviting your congregation to come to a Narcan training. And this is a way to reverse an overdose. Narcan is designed for that. And you really don't think that that's something that you need, but it is. Even inside your church, if you have a emergency kit, you need to make sure that you have Narcan in your kit. So make sure that you have the Narcan and get the training in Capillary Human Services. It's very, very good at providing that training for you. We are also providing treatment services. Where to find out? There is a beautiful website. It's called opiatehelpla.org. You can click that and find all of the treatment areas that you might want to look into, because some people say, well, where do I go? I don't know who to call. But that is a wonderful website that you can find great information. The plan also is focused on recovery support services. Again, like I said, we're referring to Capillary Human Services, but there's also a wonderful program called SSP, which is an opportunity for people who might be using to reduce their harm reduction, or to make sure that if they're using, they have supplies that they can use to keep them from overdosing, to keep them from possibly connecting with another disease like HIV, Hep C. So that is another resource that we have right here in the Baton Rouge community. And as Dr. Faulkner mentioned, all of the drop boxes. You probably don't notice them at the drugstore, but ask your friend, where is the drop box? So you can bring all of your medications there. And I was very fortunate to participate in the Drug Take Back Day last fall. And it was just amazing to see the amount of medications that people have in their homes. And so this, again, it's twice a year. And as she mentioned, the one in April. But we want to, my role is the prevention, education, and awareness person. We want to make sure that you get all the information you need. I am available for in-person trainings and awareness sessions. I also do a number of sessions through Zoom because we're still in the midst of COVID. So any group of people, young people, older people, the mix, that you would like to have this information, please reach out. I can share that information with you. But we want to work very closely with churches. We have a lot of resources. We don't want to miss any gaps.
Sure. And let me say, you know, that website is really easy to navigate. And I'm so glad that you guys made it, you know, trauma informed, where if a person who's is struggling, it's real easy for them to navigate, you know, through that. So I really want to say it does work. It's working on the community. And what you said about Narcan is definitely on point. And the other thing I like that you did mention is about harm reduction. I know it's a lot of things that, you know, we don't want to talk about that, especially in the church, because we think we're giving people a license to use when we say we want to give you a clean needle. I best heard it say last week is, no, we're trying to give you something until you have a come to yourself moment, because we want you to be here for the better. So thank you for really, mentioning that. The other question I have for you is that we know that only 1 in 10 people who need treatment for addiction receive it. Stigma is a major barrier to accessing opioid addiction recovery treatments. How can the faith community address stigma faced by individual and substance users disorder and support them in getting the help they need to recover?
Well, first of all, the biggest way to eliminate stigma is education and awareness. And the fact that you all have taken time out to be on this Zoom meeting today tells me that you are interested in finding new information that can help you and your congregation. Stigma is often built on misconceptions and beliefs of a population determined to be undesirable. So stigma is manifest in our minds first by stereotype. We have a stereotype is a fixed over generation belief about a certain group of people. Now think about it. We have all these different services at our church and ministries at our church, but sometimes we may say, oh, we can't let a certain person be on the finance committee because their children have had some problems with drugs. So you have a stereotype that person or their family members can't do something because you have placed a stereotype in your mind. Again, a fixed over generation belief about a certain group. Then that can manifest into what we call prejudice. And when the stereotype is internalized, it's called prejudice. And it's a specific feeling and developed against a specific group. So again, you started with just an idea, now it's starting to internalize. And when prejudice leads to rejection of a certain group, that's called discrimination. And we know all these terms because we've dealt with it in our society in a lot of different fashions, but this is very much the same way when we talk about people who have substance use disorders. So discrimination plays out in set policies and laws against a certain group. So here we want to make sure that now, at our church, we don't put a policy in place of who can't do something because of an assumption or a stereotype that you might have had. In our faith community, we want to assist people along their Christian and spiritual journey. And the language that we use contributes very much to who seeks help and who may not seek help. And so substance use disorder is often seen as a social and moral problem, but guys, it is a health problem. Substance use disorder is a disease, just like diabetes, just like cancer, just like heart disease. And we don't discriminate against people in our congregation who have diabetes,
That's right,
heart disease, or cancer. We would never deny someone participation in our services with those types of illnesses.
Good.
And so a simple way to help us is to change our labels and our language that we use so that we can encourage more people to get help and to seek help accordingly. Y'all, language is powerful. We come to church, we go to church, we may be participating through Facebook with church right now, but we listen for the word, and the words we use are very, very powerful. And you may be the key in preventing misuse and abuse of a substance. And I have a slide that I want to share with you all just to help you with the terminology. Let's see if I can do this.
I got it, Miss Trudy.
Okay. All right. So here, I should stop sharing.
No, go ahead. You got
So
it.
here we see there are terms. And if you're in the age group with me, some of these terms on the left side of your screen are terms that we probably grew up hearing and maybe even use from time to time. But I want to shift you to all of the better terms to use on the right. So instead of saying that a person is addicted or an addict, we want to say that that person is with an addiction. Instead of saying someone is a junkie or an abuser or a drug user, we want to say that person has a substance use disorder. Instead of saying they're a former or current addict, we want to say that they are in recovery or in remission. Instead of saying that, oh, they have a habit, we want to say they have a substance use disorder. And instead of saying it's drug abuse, we want to say it's drug misuse. Again, many people misuse the drug. That happens to be a way that they might become more prone to want to use it. And then the last one says, oh, they went through a relapse. We just want to say they're experiencing a recurrence of a symptom. So as you look at these terms, I want you, like I said, to really start checking your language when you speak to members in your congregation. And let's move more towards the terms on the right side of this slide, so that we can be more inviting to people who might be going through a struggle.
Wow, this is great information. I'm sitting here looking at that. First of all, I think this is a beautiful thing instead of and to use, and this will really help us when it comes to reducing the stigma of addiction. Thank you so much, for this. I know this is going to be shared a whole lot, and I think this is something good that people would be more than happy to re-educate themselves instead of saying this, do that. A funny story is I was getting a new car and the guy was telling me, don't take my car to through the washer you pull in, take it to a person who can, hand clean it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I have to find somebody who can do that. He's like, no, just find a crackhead, give him $20 and, they'll detail it. And so it took everything, since we're talking biblical, it took everything out of me not to be Paul in the Bible, because, that was my drug of choice. And so I'll just let him slide that day. But it's things like that, that broke my heart, but also like, wow, so changing the language will help reduce stigma, and knowing that, nobody, calling a person a crackhead is just not cool. So yeah. Thank you, so much, for that. And thank you for the work that you guys do. And thank you to all our panelists. You guys had some great information. And I know the people that are listening and watching us right now is going to definitely utilize what you said. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Mr. John Nasaka.
Thanks, Tanja. We've had a number of questions, a number of comments that have come out during this, and we have a few more minutes for this segment, so I'd like to go back to some of these. First off, there's quite a few comments to Miss Daria Venning Asbury. Miss Daria, there's so many people who want to support you right now, you and other families like you. And if you look down in the chat, there's plenty of people who appreciate you sharing so candidly about the trouble that you and your family have been experiencing, and the courage that you've shown by coming and sharing your story with us.
All right, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And it means a lot, it takes a village. And as long as we can continue to educate and get the word out and provide the resources, it's going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. There were also several comments where people were asking about getting in touch with our presenters. Is there a way to reach out to Dr. Faulkner or Ms. Trudy? And I'm going to ask all of our presenters right now if you're comfortable with this, and if you're not, that's fine. But if you are comfortable with this, would you go into the chat box and put in, type your complete name and then a contact number or email address? And our attendees will then be able to draw from your contact information from the chat box. There was a comment about how much someone loved the church resource list. Thank you, Dr. Faulkner, for sharing that idea.
Mm-hmm. And can I also say this about the resource list? I know that's something that OBH is working on to do this year, and to kind of roll out something that all LGEs will be able to do, kind of like what Capital Area is doing, but make it conducive for their area. So that whole resource list with all those information that faith-based organizations can have and other organizations. So that's going to be really cool.
Now, for some of the questions that we have, some of these are directed to specific people, and others I'm just going to ask anyone on the panel to go ahead and make a comment on. This first one that I have here was for Ms. Asbury, saying, "Please don't give up hope. Do you know whether or not a life event caused her change and addiction? I feel that we must go back to the root of any cause to help with healing. Knowing why most times helps in recovery." And I know this question speaks to trauma and the impact of trauma on people's lives and on addictions. Ms. Asbury, do you want to comment on that? Are you comfortable commenting? Do you think that your daughter's problem stemmed from any particular incident?
Up until the last maybe a year or two, it's private, but she did reveal some things that had occurred when she was younger. Yes, so that's what we're, trying to get to the root of. Now that she has spoken about it, I guess it's just taking time for her to try to heal from it.
Yeah.
So it's a journey, it's a process, so hopefully that, that has been confronted, that the healing can come.
Yeah. Ms. Dawn, did you want to, I saw your hand go up. Did you want to make a comment?
Yes, I just want to say, as a mother of two young adult men and a GG to a 4-year-old, having gone through my own experiences and can definitely relate to Mrs. Asbury. First and foremost, appreciate you sharing. Also want to just lift up, especially for mothers, that question can sometimes be difficult, especially if that mother is just starting to experience these type of things. And I please don't want to speak on your behalf, Ms. Asbury, but I do want to lift up a certain sensitivity for a mother or a father with that type of question, because there's already that internal thinking of, is it something I did wrong as a parent? And I don't know their situation. And we don't need to know necessarily, but in that, we dealing with ACEs and trauma-informed care, and that's a very excellent question. But sometimes in a family setting, that can be extra sensitive. And I just wanted to lift that up. And I know that the person that asked the question was trying to be supportive and was being supportive and thinking along the lines of ACEs. But I thought it was important to just lift that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. We have several other questions. One was, where can we find faith-based programs? I think they're asking about faith-based addiction programs. Dr. Cataldi, is there such a thing as a faith-based medication-assisted treatment program?
Well, there should be, and I'm open to helping anybody, any church that wants to establish that. I wish there was a community-based, if there is, I don't know, but a community-based, faith-based, nonprofit, no barriers to get in program that offered teachings from the Recovery Bible, which I think is an excellent publication. And that the only thing that's ever worked for anybody is to ultimately experience a spiritual awakening. And we know this to be true. And when you make that turn and have that spiritual awakening, you're there. So my answer is, I would love to see the community come together. I don't know all the politics of all the various religions, but there are politics involved. There always are. To come together, maybe have a centralized program, and that program, of course, I'm going to push capillary. That program could work with those churches, such that the aftercare could be at those churches and things like that. I don't have the answer, but I certainly am open and be honored to be involved in development of something like that.
To any of our panelists, do any of you know of any faith-based specific recovery programs in the Baton Rouge area or in South Louisiana?
So yeah, there are some. There used to be a lot in 2004 and 2010, and then when administrations changed, that kind of changed. But there are some, like for example, Woodlake. I know that they're founded on a faith-based component. You have more probably wraparound services than you actually do with treatment. There's a lot of them out of state, but Louisiana, have a few. We have like more like in the northern part of Louisiana, but we do have a lot of Celebrate Recovery meetings, and we do have churches are really cool now and allowing their space before COVID for someone to come in and do NA and AA and HA and things of that nature. So we're seeing the faith-based community rise up in those areas and offer services to people with addiction and destructive behavior.
One of our attendees asked a question, which is kind of interesting. She's noticing that predominantly the attendees are women. Does anybody have a comment or an idea of why that might be?
Because women do the work.
Oh, Lord, there we go. I knew it.
I say that teasingly, but oftentimes, even if so breaking into a religious space with this subject matter is difficult. But then on top of that, well, not on top of that, but another aspect is oftentimes pastors, even if there's an interest in this subject matter and getting access to the toolkit, things of that nature, they'll delegate because they do have a lot pulling on them. And so that's possibly part of the reason why. But yes, we definitely did reach out specifically to churches and will continue to do so.
Thank you, Dawn. One of our attendees gives a recommendation to Pastor Cyrus in Greenwood Springs, in case anybody's looking for a specific.
I have communicated with Pastor Cyrus, and I shall follow up with him. Yes, thank you, ma'am.
And he's really good about that. He's one of the first churches that probably back in the day when LDH was reaching out to faith-based organizations to do treatment centers. He had one at the time, and it was really successful. So he's really a champion of faith and treatment.
Yes, because they have across the street from the church house is a center.
Yeah, they used to have it. It's no longer open, but it did amazing work. And I think they're working on back getting that open.
The last question that we're going to cover here, someone's asking, are we asking churches that are involved in recovery to be on a resource list? Is anyone keeping a resource list of churches that want to be involved or that have recovery committees or recovery programs?
Well, that's what we're looking to accomplish. We're looking to do that now. Trudy, along with us in the capital area, we're looking to build our resources so that we can provide additional services to our community as well.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into our next segment, and our next two speakers are going to be covering faith-based opioid epidemic, the faith-based opioid epidemic toolkit, and both of these professionals work with Capital Area with our prevention program. I want to introduce Dawn Collins with our prevention program and Ricky Davis. And Dawn, are you going to go first this morning?
Yes, I am. So what I'm going over is the hard copy and electronic version of our faith-based toolkit. It is beautiful and amazing. Trifold folder. And it not only just gives you information, but it provides resources for faith-based organizations to hit the ground running after an event, something like this. Many of you, when you registered, said that you do want a hard copy. We have sent off about 60 or so. And then those who have registered after that mail date, we'll get back to you and make sure we mail those out. And we do have some that are in the office, and you are more than welcome to schedule a time with me to come and pick it up. Whether you are a minister or a community member or a congregation member that want to follow up with your pastor and make sure that your pastor gets access to this for the congregation. Okay, and John, you want to keep showing the screen?
I can.
Okay.
I was just giving it a flash so people could see these.
Content.
Yeah, very professional looking content.
We did good. I'm gonna pat ourselves on the back. Under the amazing direction of Prevention Director Vivian Geddes. So what you see is, again, the cover of the toolkit, and then some of the contents, one of which I'll go into more detail, the Opioid Epidemic Toolkit Guide. Did you know church bulletin insert, keys to emotional intelligence, recovery is possible, conversation starters, and then the pocket guide we have. We even have a few, we say stay away from these dangerous painkillers, but some people like myself, you may have noticed me kind of massaging these muscles from time to time, is because I have bulging discs. And you say, well, don't be careful with those opioids, Dawn. It shouldn't take more than a 7-day supply. Okay, well, what I'm gonna do with the other 350-something days of the year? Alternatives to pain management. We have a little pocket guide in our toolkit for that. And so moving forward, John, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Okay.
Thank you. And so what I have, again, is a hard copy of the faith-based toolkit guide, which is in the middle pocket of the hard copy. We also have it online. Two-fold booklet, and let me show you what it looks like online. It's available in the cloud. Can everyone see my screen that I'm sharing? Okay, so this is an online copy of everything in the toolkit plus more. So what I'm going to also do is show you the downloaded version of this PDF toolkit. Okay, so the front side. Let me help also for folks to better visualize, understand, conceptualize the purpose of the toolkit itself. Okay, faith-based leaders have an important role to play in helping educate people about the dangers of opioid misuse. I think I'm talking to the choir with that, right? Offering support for those affected by the opioid crisis and directing people to treatment services in their community. A faith-based forum convened by Capital Area Human Services before the coronavirus pandemic engaged over 80 faith-based leaders from our community to discuss information and resources to better respond to the opioid crisis and meet the needs of their congregation. As a result, we came up with this practical toolkit for things to help congregations and faith-based nonprofit leaders, community leaders, etc., hit the ground running with what we have to offer and educate community. So on the inside of the toolkit, we explain addiction is a disease. It's a little bit more than just mere willpower. It's that monkey on the back, as the older generations sometimes describe it, right? And so then that science, we go into the science of what it means to say addiction is a disease. Here, if you have downloaded this file, you'll see that you scroll over certain things and it's a hyperlink. Okay, so addiction is a disease. This is a summary of what you can learn more about, and you just click. And for the ease of presentation, I already have that document open, and it explains opioid use disorder, guide to addressing stigma, okay, and why you should address stigma, and how you can reduce stigma. Other things that are in the guide is.
Dawn, are you showing us right now those?
Yeah.
Those
what do you see? Yes, what do you see?
I just see the drive folder. So when you shared only the drive screen. You may have to stop sharing and share again.
Okay. Well, I didn't have to do that in the practice run, huh? Okay.
There are different ways of sharing. I think you hit a different one.
Must have. Okay. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. So this is what I was talking about a little earlier. I apologize. that I didn't realize I wasn't sharing this particular screen. So here, addiction is a disease. When you hover over and you see the hyperlink, you click read more, and then for the sake of presentation and saving time, I've already downloaded, and this is what opens when you click on that hyperlink, and then scrolling down some more, you see is a listing of all of the toolkit resources that is in the online drive or in the hard copy, okay? And so again, in the PDF, you would just double click. What is this church bulletin insert? Okay, you would also see that we have some resources that's specifically geared towards youth. Emotional intelligence information cards, just to give people cognizant of, you know, I have all these emotions and these thoughts going on. What does that mean to help people better manage? Specifically geared towards women, I recognize the risk brochure. Again, you hover over the title of the document, and then you would just double click and have that available to you. And then for seniors, we have two items, the safe medication practices brochure and a medication chart, so that you can keep up with your medication. And it sounds simple, but those who have several medicines that they have to take at different times, etc., know how important it is to keep up with it in a chart, not just for themselves, but also for their doctor, as well as family members that are helping them with their care. So we have those items available. Let's go now to conversation starters for those in the faith community who are new to having these conversations about addiction. We mentioned earlier that there are some like Pastor Leo Cyrus, like Healing Place Church, who are already familiar. But for some, just like a parent who's having a hard conversation about different things going in their child's life and things they need to address, like maybe sex education or something like drug use or misuse, then this is something that is helpful. Okay, so it's a nice one pager that one helps you recognize signs and symptoms of opioid misuse and abuse. Or really, these are universal signs, to be quite honest. Sudden unprovoked outbursts, quickly changing moods, depression, recent financial troubles, poor performance at work or duties. Then some dialogue tips, things to remember as you seek to engage in conversation. Prepare for the conversation by doing proper research. Don't just work off of assumption. Before starting the conversation, make sure the person is sober, because we don't, when you're dealing with someone who's struggling with addiction, in that moment, when they are high or what have you, it's not necessarily the best time to have the conversation. It might feel like the best time because you're emotionally being pulled and you need to have the conversation, but it's important to do it when the person is sober. And then, you know, the conversation starters. Use some of these conversation starters from, and we mentioned another online resource, startyourrecovery.org, that can help you, that you can use to begin a discussion about opioid misuse. One, I wanted to check in with you because you haven't seen yourself lately. Seems simple enough, right? If you're like me and you want to deal with the issue, you go straight for the jugular. Look, son, look, cousin, Ray, or neighbor, neighbor's child, Anita, look like you're on drugs, honey. We need to do something about it. No, that's not how you want to open up the conversation, right? You want to say, I'm just checking on you because you don't see yourself lately, and kind of open that door, get your foot in the door, right? And so then let's go to another one. The last item I'm going to show you are the social media posts. And again, all of this is online, and I want to make sure you see the online folder, okay? This is all of the materials, again, that are in the hard copy. They are listed in alphabetical order. So remember, I showed you the already downloaded PDF of Addiction is a Disease. I showed you the already downloaded of conversation starters. And I also even showed you the online, the hard copy, and the already downloaded version of the faith-based toolkit booklet. And so the last item I'm going to show you are the social media post. Another quick note, these items are all in alphabetical order, with exception to the social media graphics. And the reason that is because those graphics are all in one folder. And so the way that this cloud drive displays information, files are first, folders are first, and then it lists any individual file. Okay, so that's how the online tool is organized. So again, we'll go to social media posts, you double click it, you use your browser. Usually on the top right hand side is the download file button, and you click. And so here we are for ease of presentation and to save time. This is what it looks like. The first page are Facebook posts.
Lauren, you need to share that screen again.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the reminder. All right. So first page, Facebook posts. Second page, Instagram posts. And if you pull this up and you download it, download the social graphics here. I'll also show you, again where to see it on the online drive. And then we'll pull out some examples. And so let's look at this first example, and I'm gonna increase the size. All right, so the second to last one, more than half of those who abuse prescription painkillers actually obtained them from family and friends. Keep opioids locked up and discard unused or expired medications in secure prescription drug drop boxes, as has been mentioned earlier in one of the panel discussions, or disposal bags for medication safety information and medicine collection sites. Then go to beahero-gettozero.org. This is the graphic that goes with it. This is a ready-made tool for you to simply copy and paste into your Facebook, your organization's Facebook page post. Okay, and then we didn't want you to have to look around for what's a good graphic or a good picture to go with it, because you don't just want to put the words, because people don't pay attention to only words on social media posts, right? So we have a graphic here. We also, recovery is possible. Here's another post. Addiction to drugs, including opioids, is a treatable disease, not a moral failing. Let's create communities that offer acceptance and support to reduce stigma and connect people to the treatment they need. If you are someone you know is struggling with opioid addiction, recovery is possible. For confidential and professional treatment services, contact Capital Area Human Services at realhelpbr.com, and that will bring you directly to the Capital Area website, where we do offer a plethora of services for those who need behavioral health treatment, behavioral health care, as well as addiction treatment services. And we will also, I'll pass this along to my colleague, my partner in crime shortly, Ms. Ricky Davis, who also explains some other resources that are available once you identify that you have someone who needs some help. Oh, and then just real quickly, I'll just show you an example of three of the graphics, and also make sure that you realize that there is a difference between a Facebook post graphic and an Instagram post graphic, or there should be. On Facebook, you can share rectangular images. Okay, so this one is obviously one for Facebook. We have both the Facebook rectangular, and we have the Instagram post. For demonstration purposes, I'll only pull down the rectangular ones, but know that it's very important. Facebook, the graphics look great rectangular, and they'll do a good job with a square graphic. Do not put a rectangular graphic on Instagram. They will let you post it, but it will not look cute, and it doesn't work quite as well. So make sure you use the square ones for Instagram. And that is all. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Don, for that information. I am Ricky Davis. I'm the Prevention Project Coordinator for Capital Area Human Services. And you guys asked a few questions in the chat box. And we'll get to those in just a few minutes. And I believe I'll be able to answer a lot of those questions for you. We here at Capital Area, we do have a variety of resources that are available inside of the toolkit that Don did describe. We do have a resource guide of our 2017 version. However, we are building more resources as we go along, especially now that we're in the world of COVID. Life for us is not going to be the same any longer. You know, we have our nice little facial masks on, and we're, you know, just trying to do things the best way that we could, the way that we know how to do them. Some of the resources that we have available at Capital Area due to COVID is our Louisiana Spirit program. Louisiana Spirit is a baby of mine because I was also a part of Louisiana Spirit, and it was a very, very good program that I was a part of during that time. Louisiana Spirit during the COVID, it's pretty much now we can conquer COVID-19 here in Louisiana. Louisiana Spirit provides emotional support to those in the community that are facing unfortunate coronavirus situations. They have resource linkage coordinators available to assist you with resources such as housing, rental assistance, employment opportunities, and also resume assistance. And they can also do a referral base for the additional needs as well. If you or anyone else that you are, that needs some services from Louisiana Spirit, they're able to assist you with that. Rosalind Augustus can help you there, and they have some great employees that will be able to assist you with getting that information. And their contact information is 225-964-3901. And that's showing you on the left-hand side of the resource guide here on the screen. We also have coming soon the Bridge Center for Hope. At the right-hand corner of the screen, we're talking about that center. They're also in partnership with Capital Area. The Bridge Center is designed to treat individuals who are experiencing mental health crisis and also substance abuse use issues as well. So they are located on Florida Boulevard, and they will be opening soon. As you know, that Capital Area also have addiction recovery services that are available. Those services are very, very helpful for us as a community, as well as the faith-based leaders to be able to take partnership in. You guys asked some questions about, can we provide resources? I think it's a great idea for us to be able to provide additional resources, or even find a church or location that will be willing to, like Reverend Cyrus Church or any other church, to have a base there that we can say, we know this church here actually helps our community with opioid addiction, that we'll know where we can go as a family or as a community to help everyone. Capital Area, we have the Behavioral Health Center, which is located off Wooddale, North Baton Rouge Behavior Center off Howard Boulevard. We have Children's Behavior Extension, as well as Down Syndrome and Developmental Disabilities off of Florida Boulevard. Here at Capital Area, we have moved into these new locations. However, we're still offering the same services. Addiction recovery can also provide you with mental health services, peer support, housing, employment opportunities, as well as give you additional resources that you will need. So that flyer there at the top, and I can share all this information with you guys in an email document to everyone so that you can have access to these resources. And if you did not receive a copy of the hard copy, this information is also inside of that Bentley Link Toolkit, which we have provided inside of the chat box, as well as we can email the copy to you as well. John, you can go to the next slide for me. So you asked questions in reference to how can you be of assistance. If you're needing to provide activities to better respond to the opioid in your ministry or obtain the faith-based toolkit, we can help. We did mention earlier about Narcan kits and training, as well as we do have the Tyrio bags as well. Narcan kits is very, very valuable. I think it's a great idea for us to make that a part of our safety kit. We can have Narcan kits available inside the church because, like Trudy stated earlier, that we need to make sure that we're not excluding those that are using drugs at this time, that we actually include them. We don't take away people that use diabetes or that have diabetes, we actually include them within our congregation. We should do the same thing for everyone. So if anyone that did not receive a copy of the toolkit and you want to go ahead and take an opportunity for that, here's my contact information that you can contact me to be able to obtain a copy of the toolkit. If you do not make this next round of mail outs, you can also contact me. You can come by and pick up a copy of our toolkit from our Howard Boulevard location. I'm on the second floor. My contact information is here, phone number, thank you, John, an email address, and you may take a screenshot of it as well, or take a picture of it so that you can have better access to it. On the toolkit, it also has my contact information on the back, as well as in the inside of the toolkit as well. We're hoping that we can be able to provide additional services to everyone, such as Narcan trainings within our community, whether or not it's through the faith-based trainings or leaderships, or as well as anyone in your clergy that you're actually utilizing to be able to attack what is the issue and go to the root cause of why we are where we are today. I want to make sure that we go to the next slide as well. Go ahead, John. You here? So I just share with you guys some information in regards to how you can possibly use a lot of the information that we provided you today. So I want to go ahead and start asking some questions. How can we begin to use the resources inside of the toolkit that can be able to help you? Regardless if it's just information in the toolkit, you can use the information that was provided from some of our panelists, as well as information that you may have not known today. And I already wrote down some ideas. So while you're getting your questions together, some ideas that I had, I did take part into the Take Back Day in October 2019, and I had a great time at Women's Hospital. So Ms. Leslie Faulkner, I do thank you for mentioning the Take Back Day, which is going to be April 25th of 2021 here in our state of Louisiana, and also October 2021. Drug Take Back Days are very, very important because a lot of people in our community, people that has passed away, we have a lot of medication that's still sitting there for our loved one that may not be there anymore. And we have people that are addicted to opioids that are going to the medication safe or going into the medication cabinet and taking their medication. That's why locking your medication up is very important. We're going to go into that in just a few minutes. So some of the ideas that I have with some of the faith-based, you guys can also take part. It doesn't have to be on April 25th, but if you say, well, hey, we want to do a Take Back Day for our church and be able to begin the conversation, this is a great opportunity for you to be able to participate in the Drug Take Back Day, or even building your own Take Back Day as well. I do see a few questions inside of the chat box, and I can go ahead and start answering those. John, can you assist me with that as well, so that we can speed up? I know that we're running short on time, but sometimes great information is the best way to be able to get it out. We have to go over just a little bit. So go ahead to the first question, John.
Ms. Polly Johnson it looks like it's more of a question to Dr. Cataldi.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson, Dr. Cataldi, wants to know that she'd love to work with you, and she's got an address in here. I'm going to ask Ms. Johnson if you'll look in the chat box for Dr. Cataldi's contact information and send him an email. I know he'll want to respond to you. Here's another question. I work for a small psychiatry recovery clinic in Baton Rouge, and November 2020 marked the date when we went private pay only to accepting at least one insurance for medication assisted treatment, from private pay only to accepting one insurance. I'll not use this time to share specifics, but would be happy to let Capital Area know we take the major insurances offered here in Louisiana. Our hope is that it allows more people to reach out for medication assisted treatment. If information would be helpful, please indicate yes. Please put in the chat box the name of your program. We'll be happy to have that listed in the chat box. And someone is asking us to please mention that Capital Area Human Services also has psychiatrists and other prescribers on staff to assist people. And, that's one of the things that I can say that I love about working at Capital Area is that when people show up, we have a no wrong door policy. And if someone shows up and they say, oh, I didn't come here for that mental health stuff. I just want to get help because I'm smoking too much weed. I don't want to talk about this other stuff. I only want to talk about that. To us, that's fine. We'll take you any way we can get you. We just want you to come and feel like this is a safe place for you to come and ask for help. So let's see. I don't think we have any other questions right now. We are running short on time. It's 11 o'clock, and I know some of you only budgeted 2 hours for this. And we're going to thank y'all for joining us. And please, if you have any remaining questions, put them in the chat box. We have a couple of more segments, and those of you who can stick around with us, we're going to go over, demonstrate a couple of videos that we have, very short, and we'll have some closing remarks as well. But if you have to leave right now, and you have any questions or you need somebody to contact you, put your information in the chat box. We'll have a record of that afterwards, and we'll be able to refer back to that.
Thank you so much, John. Tanja had to jump off of the call for right now. However, I'm going to go ahead and take over to show out the videos that we have provided. These videos can be showcased at your congregation. I know right now we're kind of on a Zoom, Facebook Live type of scenery as far as when we go to church, but some churches are actually having church live and in person. But in the event that you guys are wanting to do more, we have about 4 videos that we just chose 2 to be able to show to you guys today that can be seen and used in your congregation as well. The first video that we're going to show, John, you can go ahead and cue up that video for me, is what is an addiction? This video is not long, but Tanja Miles did a great job of being able to showcase to us what addiction is. So we're going to watch this video shortly.
Addiction is a disease of the brain. Once your brain is hijacked due to opioid abuse or any kind of other addiction, it will cause you to do risky behavior, doctor shop, or seek street drugs. But there is help. Capital Area Human Services have been in existence for over 20 years, serving our community with those who have issues with addiction or any kind of destructive behavior. If you or someone you know is experiencing any kind of issues with addiction or destructive behavior, reach out to us at Capital Area Human Services. You can call us at 225-925-1906 or reach us on the web at www.realhelpbr.com. There is help. Capital Area Human Services, we're here to serve you.
So that was our video, what is addiction? And our next video is going to be about medication safety practice. So we talked about medication being safe and not being able to get into the hands of the wrong hands. However, we want to make sure that you guys are aware of how to be able to start that conversation as well to know the difference. You can go ahead and cue up the next video, John.
And over-the-counter medication is needed. When it's not taken correctly, it can be dangerous. One of the things that we can do is clean out our drawers, clean out our medicine cabinets with drugs that we don't use. The next time you hear of the Take Back the Day, make sure you be involved in that. You can take your unwanted, unused pain medicine to those drop-offs, and they would dispose of them the correct way. At Capital Area Human Services, our goal is to serve those who have issues with addiction or any kind of destructive behavior. Opioid addiction is real, but there is hope. Make sure you contact us at 225-925-1906 or reach us on the web at www.realhelpbr.com. Recovery is real.
And as you guys can see, those videos can be also accessed through our Bentley link that we provided to you earlier today. Once again, I want to thank you guys for attending today. And I'm going to get ready to turn it over to our prevention director, Ms. Vivian Geddes. She has been a very good help and good resource for me as well, and to Don, in providing this information and getting the documentations together so that we can provide to you guys. So Vivian, you can go ahead and take over.
Hey. Good morning. I do appreciate you all making this commitment today to attend this faith-based forum. You know, our hope really is that you feel enlightened and inspired. You know, I love the passion that everyone brought to this conversation today. There was some valuable information from some of the most knowledgeable panelists, you know, that we have, you know, in this community. And I think what Tanja said that sticks with me all the time is that we have to do this together. And she talked about the partnership that behavioral health services needs to have with their faith-based community. You know, spirituality is a major factor in living a healthy life. So we know that that's important. And this is the way we will be able to really make a bigger impact. I was very discouraged when I heard about the doubling of the overdose deaths. So we really got to start working now. We can't wait. We can't wait. We have to do it together. Capital Area Human Services is looking forward to working with our faith-based community and other agencies like we've done over the years, law enforcement, medical community. You know, it takes all of us working together. We all have a common mission, and I keep thinking about that is we want to help people in need connect to resources. That's our common mission, and that binds us together. And we all have incredible resources if we work together. So, you know, we are encouraging everyone on this call. We had over 80 people on the call today, so that's awesome. We want to encourage you to contact our staff. Ricky Davis is the contact person to really start using that toolkit. I kept hearing about we need resources, we need resources. Well, we have them now through Capital Area's toolkit. So we really want to assist our faith-based community organizations to use those resources. And we really want to hear from you. I just can't emphasize that enough. So last, I just want to thank our speakers. Just a big thanks to all of our speakers and our community partners, Louisiana Department of Health, OPH, OBH. They're all working with our local community organizations with funding and other resources. So that's very important. And I'll have to give a big shout out to our executive director, Dr. Lappinghouse. She has the background, she has the spirit, she has the same goals to bring us together. And without her support, I don't think we'd be as far along as we are today. So, and we were looking forward to our continued growth as an agency. John, you have been a great MC today. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
He really did a great job. And Tanja, I know she had to leave the call, but she's always been such a big advocate. You know, I've known her for many years. I know many of you know her as well. She says, you know, I keep it real. And I love that about her. And Dr. Faulkner, I see some of that in you too. So appreciate Tanja and, you know, my prevention staff that I work with every day. We really put a lot of effort into this toolkit. Let me just tell you, we pulled all the research. We looked at all the good resources out there, and we developed some of our own as well. So Dawn, Ricky, thank you all so much for all your support and all your dedication and hard work. And really thank everybody for your time today. But during this time of COVID, please, you know, be healthy, be safe, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Vivian. You know, this is a particularly special topic in my heart as a recovering person. And as I've been sitting here looking at all of these smiling people that are just really want to be able to help. And I'm thinking back to all of the people who tried to help me in the past. And there were the doctors, there were the priests, there were the sisters, there were the teachers, there was the psychologists, and I was unapproachable and I was unworkable. The one person I remember that had a special message in my heart is this one particular guy, Brother Ernie, who he didn't pressure me, but he stepped in front of me when I was walking down a hallway one day, and he said in his Cajun accent, which I'm not going to try to do right now, but John, you don't look good. And we don't have to talk about this today, but I want you to know that I see you and you don't look good. When you're ready to get some help, come find me. And, you know, now at this point in my life, I know what it takes to help people with addiction. It's that human connection that they've been missing. And, you know, not everybody is going to be ready for it every day, and they may not be ready for it with the message that you have keyed up, you know, but they are searching for that connection, and maybe they find it in their drug friends and in their drugs, but they're going to be open at some time in some place. They're going to be open to having that human connection with somebody else if you're ready to give it to them, if you're ready to feed it to them. And so, all of you out there that are fighting the fight every day, thank y'all for being here. And y'all have a great rest of your week and a great day. And, we're going to be here for a few more seconds, but we're going to just let y'all know we're going to be signing off. Thank you.
And John, can you go ahead and show the screen with my contact information so that those that did not get a chance to get it to do so?
Yeah.
And we are going to record some of the email addresses that have been taken inside of the presentation as well.
Sure. There's your contact information should be on the screen now. And thank all of you so much for attending today.
And yes, it's being recorded. Somebody asked, Miss Tracy Broussard. And so you'll get it once we're able to get it in a shareable format, like a link. Ms. Broussard will send it, or Mr., because Tracy is a sex neutral name. Tracy will get you and everybody a link to the recording.
Also, some of the panelists that are Vivian, Dunn, and myself, John, can we stay on for just a minute? Or Dr. Lapperhouse, you as well, so we can kind of get some additional feedback.
Sure.
If you have time.
I'm looking for comments, and all I'm getting is
thank yous.
Thank yous and good work. And let's see. I'm going to see if we can't end this for our attendees.
I think Vivian logged off prior to. Well done, when you can talk. Hey, Dr. Laphouse.
Well, give me 1 second to see if I can do something to stop this from being live. See if I can. I'm going to stop the recording.